of such aggression, Israel will respond. Our response will be decisive, and yes, it will be painful.
Well, Israel has also banned Secretary General Antonio Guterres from entering the country. He has been declared a persona non grata. That's because after the Iranian ballistic missile attack, he called for a de-escalation and a ceasefire. But today in his remarks this morning, he did say he condemns Iran and Hezbollah, but he also criticized Israel for its actions in Gaza. Neil, back to you.
Yeah, he certainly did. Thank you very much. And to that point, and Eric just mentioned it, General Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General, really in a lopsided way went after Israel post these Iran attacks, saying since last October, Israel has conducted in the Gaza the most deadly and destructive military campaign in my years. A second very general comment, the suffering endured by the Palestinian people in Gaza is beyond imagination. No reference there, and for a good chunk of his remarks, to Iran and its missile attack. So to Kevin Cramer, the North Dakota senator, what he makes of this. Senator, you've been talking about this sort of lopsided view in the United Nations, how we're treated, how Israel is treated, but that's pretty black and white right there. What did you make of it?
It's pretty awful, and I would certainly hope that while we have to go through the machinations, if you will, of going to the United Nations and making comments, that we'd never look to them for counsel on how Israel should respond, nor how the United States ought to back Israel. The word unequivocal support has to stop being followed by a but. Unequivocal with a but is not unequivocal. That's got to be the United States position, and that ought to be the United Nations position, but it is not. So I just think we just have to listen and ignore.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, too. I know you're all over the oil market and how that's doing. Of course, there's been a pop-up in prices as a result of growing fears about how far this escalation of hostilities goes. Not as much as yesterday, but I believe, Senator, and you know this far better than I, we're up about 5% over the last couple of trading days on fears it could get worse. Do you agree with that?
For sure, and 5% is sort of the emotional response, right?
You're absolutely right.
What could happen response. So the big response would be if something happens further, particularly if there's an attack on, as Senator Graham has been talking about, on oil assets in Iran, which I support, by the way, or if further sanctions that would actually be enforced. Frankly, if we would just enforce the sanctions.
I'm sorry, Senator. You support going after those Iranian oil sources. And I certainly see your rationale behind that, but obviously the impact on the global oil markets would be maybe something akin to the 1970s, right? Prices could rocket everywhere,
could
right?
Be. Yeah. No question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we'd have to do it surgically, for sure, Neil, and I wouldn't advocate just taking out everything that they have, but we could start with enforcing the sanctions and maybe go after a refinery or two that is feeding our other enemies. I mean, we're in this position largely because when Joe Biden became president, he lifted all of the sanctions, unleashed all of their ability to produce oil, and even with sanctions, they've been shipping oil on sort of the black market through their ghost armada into the teapot refineries of China, helping both China and themselves. Russia doing similar things. In fact, Russia's gotten so brazen that they don't even do it with a ghost armada. They file the routes and take their oil that's sanctioned to countries that are willing to pay for it. And this is what's funding their war, and it's what's inspiring them to ignore the United States, because we've been a paper tiger. And I think it is time for us to get a lot stronger, and I think taking out an oil asset in Iran would certainly send a message that we're not just fooling around. This is not unequivocal, but.
All right. Could I step back and get your view of how the administration is handling this right now? We were very instrumental in helping the Israelis shoot down these 180-plus missiles that were lobbed their way yesterday. We were not notified last week about this Hezbollah attack that Israel launched. There are different reports, but that we were kind of in the dark on that. I'm just wondering where you see things now and how the administration, more specifically, is, for the moment, standing behind Israel.
Well, for the moment, they're standing behind Israel, but moments add up to long time frames, and I think this moment has to be the norm, not the exception. For example, if if we have intel, it's great that we're prepared to defend if an attack becomes on Israel. But we also have to defend Israel 100%. And the only ceasefire that Joe Biden should be talking about would be a white flag over Tehran if we even leave Tehran. I mean, we just have to make it clear that we're not just negotiating from a position of weakness. And it's, the time has come for significant action. I'm not talking about World War II. I'm talking about de-escalation that involves us acting stronger so that the enemies fear the United States and our allies.
All right, we'll watch closely. Senator Kevin Cramer, good seeing you again, even under these circumstances, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.
All right, a key player in all of this is Morgan Lucas, LCO Lucas Stadium. Of course, you know that whole name. It's ubiquitous with kind of cool